Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Riv. And wow, what a Friday we got. We're on the verge of World War III. The end of the world is imminent. Remember, Nostradamus predicted that the end of the world would start in the Middle East. This is the kind of stuff that makes you wonder if Nostradamus was right on target. So the Iran has threatened to attack U.S. military bases. Not a good idea.
Definitely not a good idea.
No.
I mean, the Secretary of State and the President have already said they had nothing to do with this attack. They had no endorsement, no intelligence, nothing.
Yeah, but you know the rationale that the irrational, crazy freaking Iranians are going to use, because it's death to the big Satan and little Satan. They used our equipment to shoot down their missiles.
Exactly.
So therefore, that will make us a party to this, because when they retaliated and shot hundreds and hundreds of missiles over, the technology that they're using in addition to the Iron Dome is American technology. So they're gonna blame us, because they want us eradicated too. That's what people in this country had better realize, that Iran has consistently said they want to obliterate America too. So we are the big Satan. So we will see. We will see. And it's a very, very tenuous time. But I came across these two figurines. See that? Aren't they cute? They're like robots. Yeah. I've named one Brad and one Paul.
Thanks for getting to that topic now.
And see what happens every time they make a mistake with these robots. You can go like this, and squeeze their head.
Well, it's interesting because today, Florida reporter Mike Sylvia and Joe Good did a live broadcast and talked about the John Perry report and went through it line by line, almost line by line.
Almost, yeah.
And one of the things that came out, which again proves that the administration, Paul Coogan, is corrupt and he's a lying bag of shit. Okay?
Yes.
Joe Good asked him, has this report been sent to the police department? He says it's been sent to the police department and the Bristol County District Attorney. Paul Garvin, then chief, right away went to Joe Good and said, I never received that report. So Joe Good went back to Paul and Seth Aikens, another crook, and said, the chief says he never got this report. Oh, we sent over this one paragraph. You know how he loves to turn it around?
Yeah, half truths, quarter truths, and in this case, it probably a 1/100th of a truth.
Right.
And that's not what I meant. I did send it, but it wasn't that report. It was another report that had something to do with it. And he lies. That's what Coogan does. Coogan, right. He is a pathological. He is Paul, the prevaricator, the pathological prevaricator.
Because what was interesting is
he lies about everything.
They started going over some of the complaints in the report. Okay, things like copper being stolen by city DCM employees. By city DCM employees being ordered to violate the law by John Perry and or Chris Gallagher. Ordered. This gets the feds involved. Okay?
Well,
and Paul knew of this shit. Paul knew about it. And he did nothing about it except to pay off John Perry. Does John Perry still got his pension intact? I'm quite sure he does. I'm quite sure they didn't take his pension away. Which they could. Which they could.
Only if he is convicted of a crime that was related to his position and his job, which he was not. And therein lies the problem. Everybody said he should have been prosecuted and stuff, but he does what they all do. I know where all the skeletons are hid.
That's right.
And I'm going to I'm throwing everybody under the bus, and they go, let's make a deal. Hey, look, you had a city administrator violate the law. And what did they do? Called him in and went, yeah, you're right. I violated the law. I'm just getting out of Dodge. They didn't file a complaint. They didn't prosecute him. They didn't try to get his law license taken away from him. What he did was unethical and illegal. But they don't do that because that's what Coogan does. Cover
That's
up
how they
Coogan.
Take care of their friends.
That's right.
I had a conversation today with a political candidate who asked me if they should consider starting to put together a team of people now and advertise that. I said, are you nuts? I said, you're going to make people within city government nervous. I said, those type of announcements are made after the election. Whether you're a city councilor, a school committeeman, or the mayor, you make those type of announcements after. There's nothing that stops you from looking and vetting people before, but you make those decisions afterwards. The reason why this came up is because Paul is considering, this lovely interim CFO?
Yeah.
Paul's considering making her chief of city administrator.
Well, since she's having a difficult job doing CFO, let's promote her.
That's
I would give her a pay raise. There you go. I heard from a very credible source that she is really, really, and she knows she's in way over her head. She had no idea the frying pan she was getting into when she came here. She thought it was going to be easy peasy. She was just going to take over and everything was going to be hunky-dory, but it was not. It is a situation where they throw her right into the boiling oil. And I heard she's already looking to bail.
Doesn't surprise me.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes Coogan sense. You got somebody who can't figure out the numbers in the city effectively yet. So now you're going to make her the city administrator. Now, it's bad enough that the city administrators we've had recently had no idea about how to figure out numbers. And how can you administer a city when you have no idea how to interpret the budget and the numbers?
Oh, you mean like Seth Akins who said, I don't do numbers?
That's right. And you wonder why this city is in total chaos. Coogan keeps electing, he keeps hiring people like him. He got hired to be a school teacher. He was incompetent, so they gave him a job. They gave him a job babysitting the kids that got thrown out of the regular classes, and they gave him a title. Then he became a vice principal. So he walked around with his hands in his pockets. Then he wanted to be a principal. I said, listen, you have risen to the maximum you can. You are the epitome of the Peter principle. Your vice principals, we cannot entrust you with running an entire school. Just shut up, get this nice fast paycheck being a very high vice principal because you're in the largest school in the city. So just shut up, collect your paycheck. And this is what Coogan does. He hires somebody from New Bedford. She comes in. She's overwhelmed. What am I going to do? Oh, don't quit. We'll promote you. We'll give you another job you can't do. So, I mean, I've never seen a mayor so blatantly and obviously incompetent. I mean, this guy just doesn't give a damn about ability to do the job. He doesn't care.
Qualifications aren't necessary. The only qualification you have to have is the ability to kiss my ass, in which case you get the job. Because that's the way it is. Look at Ryan Lyons. He's going to get an $18,000 pay raise unless the city council does something about it. And all he's been is a kiss ass.
CJ.
What?
I think his is 15.
Fine, 15.
I think his is 15. Well,
15 too much.
Maybe wrong, but I think his is 15. The 18 is in another department.
And the worst part about it is that office used to be run with 3 people. 1 commissioner, 1 part-timer, and 1 full-timer. Now it's got 5, 6, 7 people, and none of them know what the hell they're doing. But we're paying them all top dollar.
Yeah, well, you know that old Castilian saying, I quote, "Tell me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are." The reality is, everybody that walks with Coogan, just like him, they're dumbbells. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do an effective job when he was, he lived on a public dole for 30 years and couldn't be a real teacher. I got a lot of respect for real teachers. No way he could be a teacher. Then he became a vice principal, and what was he known for? Telling people to quit school and high-fiving people.
That's it.
Everybody loved Mr. Cougs. No discipline, no nothing, just be. And couldn't become a principal. Now he's running the city. And who does he hire? Yeah, Seth Akins, a city administrator that doesn't know the numbers. Let me give everybody a history lesson. The first city administrator, and the reason that job was created, which I was opposed to, because I said, you're the mayor, you're getting paid, you should be able to run the city. You got department heads that have to run their departments. You don't need somebody else. But if you're going to hire a city administrator, a city manager, so to speak, what do they got to do? They got to know the numbers. They got to know the city. They got to know the finances of the city. So who did they hire as the first? We remember Alan Sylvia, a Harvard MBA. And people can say a lot of things about Alan, and he's a good friend of mine. We got along great. When he first took over, we went hammer and tongue, but I knew the numbers and he knew the numbers. The guy is brilliant with numbers. He was the city manager for Fort Lauderdale for decades. Why? Because the guy knows what he's doing. He could go in front of that council and have a 12-hour meeting and just bury them with numbers on the budget. I saw it firsthand when he came back to look at the budget for Sam Sutter. He looked over the budget, and when he got back, he found out that I was in the building. I was at a meeting, healthcare meeting, and he told Lou Pacheco, he said, "Oh, Chip is in the building." He said, "Tell him to stop by when the meeting's over." And Lou Pacheco went, "Oh, you know him?" He said, "Yes, it's a very good friend of mine." And he came into the meeting and said, "Oh, Alan Silver." He said, "How do you know him?" I said, "Very long story." I said, "But, he and I negotiated against each other." I said, "We have a lot of respect for each other." So I went in there, and he had the whole city laid out. I saw it. He told them exactly what had to be done and exactly the way he wanted to do it, which was with a chainsaw. You could have done it with a scalpel. But the problem was the Sutter administration was in there for 1 year.
Not even.
They were afraid to do it.
That's right.
They said, if I make all these cuts and if I have to do this, I'm going to piss everybody off, even though I'm going to be fixing the city and I might not get reelected. Well, he didn't get reelected anyway. So, unfortunately, karma's a bitch, but he didn't get reelected anyway. But it wasn't because he didn't know the numbers. He brought a guy in that gave him, he had it down to the penny. One thing about Allen, you can't, he will just sit there and regurgitate numbers forever.
Oh, you mean he doesn't say, I don't have that with me right now? I'll get it to you later.
That'll be the day. As a matter of fact, I've seen people in the city council beg him to stop because he had so many numbers. People can't remember that far back because that was in the Viveris administration, but I do because I was negotiating then. And the fact is, I remember city councils basically begging for mercy. Stop it. My ears are hurting. You're killing me. I can't follow all these numbers, but they're all right. He never dealt with a number just for discussion, a projected number, a might be number. These are only for discussion purposes numbers. He went in there and said, this is the budget. This is the money we got. This is where it is. And if you want to question it, be my guest. And nobody would ever find anything wrong with anything he did. But after that, who did we hire? We hired Bob Connors, who was good. He knew the numbers. Then we hired Jim Smith, another former
good one.
City administrator from another community, came in, did a good job. And then what did we do? We began the Flanagan freaking Coogan era. We hired a mall manager, Kathy Ann Viveris. You hire a mall manager. Well, in the interim, we had Sean Kadim, who had a financial background, but he was basically OJTing when he was a city administrator. Because Sean came from Raytheon, and while he did have the acumen to do the job, he was not really that well versed in public sector law. So he used Fall River to get his OJT. And then when he was pretty well versed on public sector law, he bailed and went to Seekonk. See you later, bye. But at least he knew the numbers. Then we get what? Mall manager, Kathy Ann Viveris. And then it went downhill from there. Little did I ever know in my wildest dreams that we would get somebody less qualified than a mall manager to deal with a public sector budget. And then we get a guy like Seth Akins who goes, yeah, I'm going to be the city administrator, but I'm not going to do the numbers. Well, that's your whole freaking job. Sorry. You're the city. Fundamentally, it's a different title because we don't have the e-charter. They're fundamentally a pseudo city manager. That's what the city administrator is supposed to do. He's supposed to. And how do you administer the city? You look over every department, look at their budget, and you're a fiduciary of the city, and you're supposed to make sure that you know that every dollar is being spent in the best interest of the taxpayer. But it isn't. I don't do the numbers. I know nothing. Okay. It's like hiring a plumber, and he comes into your house and says, well, okay, but I don't do plumbing. Oh, you don't want any, you want more than your filter changed on your faucet? Oh, I don't do wrenches. It's like this city has become an alternate universe. It's like walking into the Star Wars bar when you look at this thing. The people we hire. It's like, we get this one over from New Bedford. She didn't complete the 3 courses she needed in New Bedford. She comes over, and now she jumps into this, and she said, oh, crap. I'm in way over my head. I'm drowning. I'm dying. I got to get out of here. So Paul probably said, "Oh, shut, man, be quiet. We'll make you the city administrator, and then we'll hire some other nitwit that comes in." We did have one in the interim, think that girl from Bridgewater. But she was here like 2-3 weeks. And she came to a retirement board meeting and says, I got to get out of this city. She said, this is crazy. And she went and got another job because she was capable of doing another job. But we get these people, and then they always use to say, oh, we got to pay these people top dollar to get good people. Well, we don't get good people. We get people that are overwhelmed, overdone. I mean, and they lie, and they knowingly lie in front of the council. So they are accessories before, during, and after the fact. The fact is that they allowed them to say, we don't know the numbers. They allowed them to say, we didn't fund things for like the last 10 years. We're not paying a full amount into the healthcare, even though we're statutorily required to do so. They are fiduciaries, and they allow them to walk out of that chamber without a lawsuit on their head or being directed to go in and get them real numbers. Because I got the case law. I've read it on this show a million times. They have to cast a critical eye. They have a fiduciary responsibility greater than a regular fiduciary because they're dealing with public money. They're dealing with taxpayer money. They have an obligation to look deeper into numbers, and they look less than any other council I've ever seen.
No, they just blankly say yes to everything. This is the
Wait a
first
minute.
time.
Wait a minute.
This is the first time.
Brad and Paul are objecting to what we're saying.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to squeeze his head. I'll squeeze his head. Go back and talk to the mayor. See you later.
Here's the thing. This is the first time in how long that this city council has even put up the appearance that they give a shit. If you would have watched last night's meeting, you would have vomited. I couldn't even get through the entire meeting. I was disgusted.
Well,
there were more questions about nothing, and of course, the big kahuna, Andrew Raposo, is asking all these questions about absolutely nothing. He doesn't even make a vote to change it.
Listen,
you know what I mean?
Well, I think that if you
Not
go
one
on,
line item was reduced or defunded. Not one.
all the talk about nothing. Was there any motion to? Was there any motion to reduce anything by anybody?
No, that's what I'm saying. There was nothing.
So there you go. It's on them. Go down with the. Make the motion and expose the rest of the bobbleheads. What you do is you enable them and you become one of them.
Before Paul Coogan took office, our budget was approximately $263 million. We are now at $534 million. Inflation does not cover 100%. We have a little more than 100% increase in the budget. Why? Because Paul Coogan gives his friends raises. He pays off employees. He's a bigger crook than Jason Correa. The only
Jason didn't steal from the taxpayers.
Jason's in jail.
Well, Jason really didn't steal from the taxpayers. Actually,
no, he didn't.
He stole from some individuals, but look, this is the most corrupt administration I've ever seen, the most incompetent administration I've ever seen. And it's, and the council is just, I don't care how good they look for a New York minute. They always get down to that fact that they always give him exactly what he wants. And not cutting that means there's $600,000 in the budget for pay raises.
That's right. For Paul's friends.
And every single new council candidate should be elected based on a fact that there was not one penny reduced from $600,000 in pay raises after admitting they didn't fund the health care. You're going to pay for that $2 million shortfall, 1.8, 2 million, in your taxes, in your fees. And once he gets elected, he'll be putting in more stuff. You'll see purple bags, or you'll see trash fees, or both, or they'll come up with something else. And the reality is that it's if you allow this council to be reelected, because they are the people who give him the money, he can make any ridiculous request he wants.
And he
like
makes a lot of them.
$600,000 in a city that's broke for pay raises. $33,000 pay raise for one individual when the per capita income in his city is $31,998. $1,200 more than somebody that's a medium person in Fall River is making for an annual income this person got for a pay raise. $15,000 pay raises, $18,000 pay raises in a time when Fall River taxpayers are getting killed. So not one of those councilors has earned a vote after that. After this budget, I'm sorry to say that.
So far. It's really sad so far. And here's the worst part about it. Okay? And you and I have had this conversation. Linda worked mainly for the state, the county. The state and the county. She worked for DSS. She worked for the district attorney's office.
Yep.
But because she was a city councilor, she paid into the Fall River retirement system. So when she retired, where did she retire from? Fall River. Why? Because of our health care. Alan Sylvia took a disability retirement as a police officer. Very much entitled to it. Now he's a state representative making big bucks, and he's going to be rolling that money into the retirement system, and he's going to be pocketing a bigger chunk of change. And he's getting the Fall River health care. And if he's not taking the state's GIC, he may be getting a premium for not taking the state's GIC. I'd like to find that out.
Well, that's a very good, that's something to really investigate, CJ, because you know something, he will probably stay in a Fall River system because the GIC's in the toilet. They're $200 million in a hole. They're bailing them out. The prices of everything are going up. And Fall River had the lowest increase that we know of in the state of Massachusetts. So he will probably opt to stay in our health care plan and get a bonus from the state. And you know who else is in our plan? Work for the state? Ray Mitchell.
Ray Mitchell, right.
They all do.
Yeah.
They all do. They all grab our health care plan. Because
that's it. Hey, George Rodricks on YouTube said they haven't voted on the budget yet. They will next week when all the departments have been down. They voted only to accept the revised budgets. I wouldn't even have voted to accept them. But
what did they revise? What substantial revision did they make in the budget?
That's what I want to know.
Nothing.
Right. That's what I want to know.
That's what you got to do to get their vote. We'll play a semantic word game. I change 3 words in a sentence and say, this is a revised budget. Because I revised it.
No.
I put a different sentence in somewhere.
Here's how she's been revising the budget. I've been listening to her. And you're right. She's playing mumbly pegs here.
Yeah.
You know, she turns around and she says, oh, well, we didn't put it in that line because we wanted to put it where it belonged. So we not put it over here.
That was so funny you choked on it, CJ.
I know. But she says, oh, we're not going to put it there. We're going to put it over here now. It puts the items together. Oh, wait a minute. No, we don't even have a line item for that anymore because we've been getting 100% reimbursement on it. So for years, we've been getting 100% reimbursement on bulletproof vests. 100% reimbursement. But it's been a line item.
Where they could
Free
hide money.
cash.
Where they could hide magic money again.
Magic
Well,
money.
listen, do you realize the insanity of that statement coming from somebody that's supposed to be a financial officer? We're going to put it in the right place. I hate to tell her this, but it's supposed to be in the right place in the beginning.
That's right.
But then again, there's no right place for money. It's only where they can get their hands on it. That's their definition of the right place.
That's like the statement. The policy has been that 10% of the city's free cash will go into OPEB benefits. But that's been interpreted as 10% of the free cash after expenses. Does it say that in the policy? No. Then it should be 10% of the free cash. Well, I can do that because after this $3.7 million transfers, end of year transfers, which we didn't want to tell you about until the end of the year, we still have $1.7 million available.
Yeah. Well, but they don't finance the OPEB correctly because again, they don't fund anything correctly. The healthcare is their problem. I showed you guys all the paperwork from 6 years ago when he got in as mayor. And I said it on the fourth page of that letter to Joan Medeiros, when I said, at some point in time, healthcare, we're going to have healthcare spikes, we're going to have pharmaceutical spikes, and because the city doesn't put away enough money, they will not be able to absorb it, and they will not have any money. That's exactly what happened 6 years later. So they can't say they didn't know it was coming. Coogan got that letter before he ever was sworn in for his first term. But none of them care. They hire a guy like Alan Rumsey, and he'll say, "I don't want to do numbers," and
attorney-client privilege, attorney-client privilege,
attorney-client privilege with the other guy. Then you got Dapper Dan saying, "I don't do numbers," and Rumsey, attorney-client. That's horse manure. You don't have any time. By the way, if they got attorney-client privilege because they work for the mayor, that's a de facto admission that they work for the mayor, not the city of Fall River.
That's right.
And in that case, let the mayor pay their salaries.
And benefits. Hey, George Roderick's got a lot of good input today. This is the $1 million question. My opinion only, but the CFO is being screwed. Last year, the city had a full-time CFO and a city administrator. Ed Iacopone. This poor girl is taking all the bullets. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but she took the job.
And whether she knew what she was getting into or not, Fall River has a reputation that's well known out there.
She took the job, and you're right. But the problem is, you can blame the people who knew and didn't do anything, but it's your job to correct it. And if she's overwhelmed, she took a job that she wasn't ready for. I can guarantee you, if Alan Sylvia walked into that council chamber and they hired him, they would hear things that they don't want to hear, but he would fix it. You wouldn't like the way he fixed it, but he'd tell you how to fix it, and he'd give you every single number without being confused either. She's over her head. That means she might have been a big fish in a little pond at one time, but now she's a very tiny fish in a big pond. She jumped into a frying pan. I sympathize with her, but then again, you got to know your limitations.
You call Fall River a pond? I call it a swamp. Like a
bottom line is, listen, for boxing fans, I'll use the boxing analogy. Inoue, Naoya Inoue is one of the greatest fighters pound for pound in the world, but he weighs 122 pounds. Probably better pound for pound than any other fighter in the world, but he's not going to go fight a heavyweight. Because even if the heavyweight isn't as skilled as him, he hits him with one shot and he outweighs him by 100 pounds. He's going to knock him into the 15th row. Everything has levels. You got to know, Sun Tzu said in the art of war, know yourself and know your enemy, and you're sure to victory in 100 battles. She didn't know herself. She thought she was capable, and she wasn't. I sympathize with the position she's in, but she should have enough courage to say, I'm overwhelmed. I can't do this job. Because we haven't had anybody that was able to do this job. We didn't need a CFO with Alan Sylvia. We didn't need a CFO with Bob Connors. We didn't need a CFO with Jim Smith. Then they began to hire him anyway. Just another job to give their friends.
Give their friends a job.
Give their friends a job.
That's
Another
it.
title. But none of them are qualified, really. And the first city administrator was eminently qualified, a Harvard MBA. Okay. The next two had great world experience, had done that job in other communities, were good with numbers. And the interim, Kadeem did okay to a degree but he was learning. He was a numbers guy, but he was a numbers guy in a private sector. That's a completely different ballpark.
Different world altogether.
And he did his homework and learned public sector. And as soon as he learned the job, fetch bye-bye, Fall River. I'm going to Seekonk.
No, he did worse to us. Not only did he say, fetch bye-bye, I'm off to Seekonk, he says, but I'm going to stay here on the city council and put the screws to you anyhow.
That's right. That's right. But then we started, like I said, then we hire mall managers. Then we hire lawyers to be city administrators that don't do numbers. I mean, this is insanity. If somebody with a functional brain looked at this city and the way they do things, they would think somebody's making it up. This is just for show. Nobody can be this screwed up. As a matter of fact, I know a couple of very big-time lawyers who always say, only in Fall River. And even Kadeem said it at the meeting before last.
The most recent city council meeting.
The rest of the state does everything by the book. This city is like the 0.1% that does it whatever way they want. But they will do that as long as they're not held accountable. If our council won't hold them accountable because it's their job, don't give the guy the money for the $600,000.
But like was brought up today on the Former Reporter live broadcast, okay, the problem we have is we have city councilors like Brad Kilby, like Paul Hart, like Linda Pereira, okay, who have too many fingers in the soup, okay? They have too many political connections, too many friends that have done favors for them and they have done favors for, okay? And it's very clear. Linda was called out in that broadcast today, okay?
Really?
Yeah. Because her statement from the city council to the one made to Joe Good were totally not in agreement. And Linda said, well, I don't remember saying that. Well, we bring up the friggin' video.
Well, Paul didn't remember that he didn't send that report over on John
That's
Perry, right? That they all suffer from the same malady, political amnesia. So this is the problem. You know, they talk a good
You
game,
people
but
keep
they have
electing
to be
them.
held accountable.
And
They
you
have,
people keep
our
electing
council has to be held accountable. Coogan can put $600,000 in there for pays. They got to cut that down to $100,000 and giving everybody a small pay raise. Save the taxpayers. No, give the guy a $33,000 pay raise. I want to see if the final budget has this in it. And anybody that votes for that budget with a $33,000 pay raise and an $18,000 pay raise will not have my vote. Okay? And they can put on their their helmets so they don't get it, but they're going to get a lot of flack. And I got another one. See, I've been accumulating props for this. I got a helmet for all the pea brains on the city council. Here it is. See that tiny little helmet? See the tiny little helmet? That's for their tiny little brains. Matter of fact, look how good it fits on Brad. But this is nuts. I mean, you can't, this city is like one of the poorest cities in the state. We have one of the lowest per capita incomes in the state, if not the lowest. I haven't checked some of the other cities like Lowell and Lawrence but we're close. Well, we have nearly a 21% poverty rate. I know that. U.S. Census Bureau 20.9% poverty rate. I know that our per capita income is less than half the state average, and our household income. That's exactly right.
You're exactly what we said.
That's exactly. We all know that.
Yeah.
I can tell you there are a lot of other people that have worked for this city that have gotten away with criminal acts.
Ken Pacheco.
And we're told, well, Ken's still around. But I saw some of these people that were told, look, just get out of here and go put in for your retirement and beat it. They weren't prosecuted for their crimes. They were free. They were given a free pass.
That's how we say for that.
They were not brought up and held accountable for their misdeeds. Look at the guy. Look at the guy from the head of security at Durfee. He was on paid leave for a year. Oh, I saw. It's already. It's cooking. It's simmering right now. They're going to be turned into flame up. Second, if he gets another term, we will be in full scale receivership mode.
You want to know something? Let's hit the city where it hurts. Okay?
At the polls.
Don't pay your quarterly tax bill.
Yeah.
Let's see what they do for 1 quarter without the money. Okay?
Yeah, they'll put a lien on your house and give the money to somebody else. But let's let the best revenge is look at somebody said another recall. Yeah, not a recall. An election where people show up. Yeah, well, Scott, like Ronald Reagan said, government spends like a drunken sailor. But the only difference between government and a drunken sailor is that the drunken sailor uses his own money.
That's right.
It's easy to spend like a drunken sailor when you're spending other people's money. Paul Coogan doesn't care. Paul Coogan is making. If he gets a 4th term, he will have made nearly $1 million gross as the mayor. Nearly $1 million, and he's got a big fat pension to live on. He could have banked it, invested it. I'm sure he's worth a lot more than $1 million now. Here's a guy that walked around as a vice principal and is now a millionaire. And
that's true, Louis. You're right.
Well, for most people, yeah. Some people have an older mortgage that they pay their own taxes, but yeah, he's right. To most banks now are requiring it, and
because they don't want the people to withhold their tax dollars.
And they're already hammering them. I got a letter from my bank 6 months ago telling me that my escrow was going to jump drastically July 1, and if they would recommend me putting in extra money in my escrow to cushion the blow.
I've been doing that for years. Yeah. When I first started doing it, at the end of a year, I'd get $100, $200 back. Now, I don't get a dime back. I owe them.
Listen, this is nuts. I pay more for my taxes, my property taxes, and my house insurance than I do for my mortgage. My mortgage payment is less than those two things combined. This is disgraceful. And what do we get for it? The mayor can't remember that he didn't send any information. They give people $600,000 pay raises. But listen, November, September, every new council candidate, give them a chance. Yeah, well, we make our
That's because
predictions.
we're not hired by the city.
I
We're
mean,
not hired by the city.
we don't. Listen, I gave Paul Coogan the numbers months before he was sworn into office, and I broke them down and I showed them all. And CJ's going to post it on it. You guys can all read that letter, and the associated. I gave him numbers from the executive director of the retirement board on how much we paid in from 02 to 16 versus New Bedford. I gave him the healthcare numbers right out of the book, right? I gave him the Department of Revenue numbers. I told him 6 years ago, you are going to run out of money. It's going to bite you in the ass. You can't keep not paying your healthcare bill that you're required to by law, ignoring the law, because we're not going to run under budget forever. We ran under budget for years. But, this time, healthcare has become a major national problem. And for the first time in a long time, we are running almost even, slightly. We're not running seriously over budget, but we are running 0.4 over. I think we're running 100.4, but that's not the final figure because we've got to wait till all the bills in June come in because this fiscal year is still, and healthcare billing is cyclical. We could have had a lot of healthy people in this last 3-month cycle, and we could be under budget this year, slightly. Not a lot, like some years, but slightly. But these guys, see, that's the thing. See, therein lies the rub, as the Bard said. They don't give a shit about numbers. They don't care. They just spend money. They're Democrats. They're politicians. The hell with it. The taxpayer's going to take it, and if they can't afford it, let them lose their house. Somebody else will pay taxes. Well, Nelson's commenting. Nelson and Colin made a presentation on all the money that the MBTA blew. They gave them all the numbers. And what did they do? They ignored it. The hell with facts. Listen to our promises. Drink our Kool-Aid. And look what they got. I saw that disgrace when a guy from the we're working on it. We want to provide you with the cheapest and best service. Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that one. They've been saying this since the T started. Where are they? $500 billion in the hole? It's a disaster. Well, Bob Correa got thrown out because he was trying to fix the city. Remember, he gave everybody an 8% pay cut? He was beginning to actually fire people. And what did the political machine in Fall River do? We got to get this guy out of here.
That's right.
One term after 30 years in Boston, but he got here and he was horrified. He went, we can't do this. Because you know why he knew that? Because Alan Sylvia was a good friend of his. Alan gave him the numbers, but Bob Correa paid attention. Bob Correa didn't have the greatest personality to be a mayor. Spent too much time in Boston. He thought he was like the Speaker of the House. He was a little over the top with, when I come in the room, you got to stand up and, I'm the Speaker of the House. No, you're the mayor. But he was doing the right, people will not say this. They will not give him credit, but he was doing the right thing. He began with pay freezes, pay cuts. He said, look, we got to get our financial house in order. And as soon as he said that, every politicians' hair burst into flames, their heads incinerated instantly. Said, oh, it's like look what happened in Washington when Musk showed up. Whoa, everybody went nuts. No, well, we were told that. Remember, Nelson? We all remember that, Nelson. You were at the meeting, I think, when they said that we don't care if you got water saving shower heads and you don't use water, and we're still going to raise your thing every 5% every year. We don't care. We don't care. We're going to use. You cannot use any Fall River water, or we're still going to raise 5% every year.
And if you're from Westport, we'll give it to you for 50% off.
And if it's wet, yeah, they should be sued for that. But hey, we can't get enough money up. People want to scrape up money. We got to sue the city. I mean, that's a travesty. The Westport taxpayers, and by the way, I think that the average income in Westport is $81,000, not $31,000. They get to pay half of what we pay for our water, and it's our water. We shouldn't be paying anything for our water.
That's true.
All we should be paying.
Phil on YouTube says, this town needs an FBI investigation. From your mouth to God's ear, Phil. From your mouth to God's ear.
Well, look at Scott's. Look, $29 million unaccounted for. There you go. No arrest, no jail. Can't wait to see unaccounted dollars. Yeah, no, of course. Well, the Braga Bridge, yeah. Well, they're working on the lights now at the Braga Bridge. That should be like building the pyramids. They should be done with that like in 2 years.
$2 million, and now it's going to cost us 16 or 19.
Listen, I don't care how bad it gets. We're not beating a big dig and a bullet train in California.
True.
California, Newsom spent $200 billion almost 20 years ago, 10 years ago. They haven't laid 1 foot of track yet. Well, the problem is you got to hire a really. See, the problem with that, Nelson, is I would love to do that, but the city, they got unlimited money. Yeah. 20, yeah, 20, you can't support it, but 26, yeah. Yeah, because he's, all right, we got to do that. All right, Lewis, you talked about Paul. I got the Paul hot dummy. I'm going to squeeze his head for you. He's a buffoon, another buffoon. What they can't afford to do is not spend our money.
That's right.
And to answer Nelson's question, the problem with suing the city is that they have unlimited resources. We don't. And you would have to have enough money because they will appeal every decision. That would end up in a mass Supreme Court.
Look at what happened with the Perry report. The Herald News, Organic Publishing, sued. They were awarded $137,000 in court costs and legal fees. And you know what the city did? We can't pay it. We'll give you 50. And then they gave him 50 to make him go away.
Yeah, but at least they gave him something. But
that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is 137 was awarded. Okay?
Well, shame on the Herald News for not trying to enforce the law.
This is why Organic Publishing and the Herald News.
The average citizen can't take them to court, because if you take them to court on what they've done with the water rates and malfeasance, I mean, we can even bring that letter I wrote to Coogan for 6 years. They didn't fund it. I can bring the laws that they violated. You're going to win the case, but they're going to appeal it. They'll come up with some bullshit appeal, and then then we'll be in the appellate court, and then but you'll end up in the SJC, and you can't go pro se in the SJC. I mean, it's crazy because and that's the problem. You look at what's going on. I mean, the people have got to exercise first their right to vote. November, we got to vote every single new candidate basically for city council in.
The problem is there are no freaking candidates.
Well,
Nobody's running.
There's a few.
There's nobody running. That's the problem. And the people who should be running for like city council are going to run for mayor. You have a slimmer chance of getting in as mayor than you did as a city councilor.
Well, unfortunately, now is the time that people are going to be pissed off, but you're going to be stuck with these people for another 2 years. And if you're stuck with Coogan and this council for 2 years, this city will be in receivership. I guarantee you will have more fees because Coogan is not going to, this is it. 8 years of an incompetent, corrupt mayor giving out this kind of money. He's going to bail. He's going to get out of town. He's going to go, I've had it. Everything's going to bite us in the ass. Diamond, Durfee, all the unfunded liabilities that they've created in collective bargaining agreements, in the retirement system.
Scott, we still have 2 vacant seats. That's if everybody who's taking out papers files them, we'll still have 2 vacant seats. So 2 more people can run for school committee, and if nobody else runs, they'll be elected.
Get some signatures, man. Somebody get some signatures. You go out and vote yourself, and you're in.
That's it.
Oh no, they would. But the problem is, somebody's got to hit the mega bucks. Somebody's got to hit the Powerball because look, and I'm not kidding. I am a man of my word. I've told everybody, and I will promise you, and you can hold me to that promise. If I hit,
you already hired an attorney.
if I hit the Powerball for more than, I don't mean like I hit the Powerball for like $2,000 or something like that. But if I really hit a decent jackpot, I can guarantee you, once I cash that, the second thing I will do after I buy a house somewhere other than Fall River will be to hire a battery of lawyers and sue the crap out of these people. I will keep this residence and I will have a summer home that I live in nearly year round somewhere. But I will hire an entire army of lawyers.
You're right, Louis. You're right. Some of the people that are running right now are just yes people. Gloria Sadler. She's been so dependent on Paul for a job, and she's running for school committee.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Kevin Aguirre.
Well, some of these people should pull papers. And I mean, look, when are the papers due in? July?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got to try to get some people people have got to run. And listen, the city's doomed. Okay. We're up here. We're talking about numbers and but people don't care. Well, something, unfortunately, when the shit hits the fan, they will all be crying and it'll be there.
And guess what I'm going to say? Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to stand in front of Government Center with a news conference and I'm going to say, you people screwed yourself. You can't bitch. You voted these morons in. You've got to eat it. It's your fault. That's what they're doing.
I'm totally disgusted with the city. I mean, we had some people that were really involved in a recall and it was successful. We got to get people reinvigorated. We got to get younger people, younger guys who want to do the job. And I mean, maybe I shouldn't give the idea publicly, but you want to get on a school committee, write yourself in a write-in ballot.
Yeah. Phil, I don't believe Mimi Larrabee is taking up papers to be in the election. So, and she would have done better to be gone long time ago. But her lips have been so brown because they're attached to the anus of Paul Coogan, as are several other people on the school committee. So, well, I want to thank you all for watching. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, whether you're here or not.
Yeah.
Remember your dad one way or the other.
Absolutely.
And
I'm going to write in Nelson for city council.
Yeah, there you go. I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.